Good morning, Mr. Copeland. I'm Judge Whitaker. I think you've been before me before in unrelated matters, but I'm the judge taking over this case now. So go ahead and have a seat. What I want to ask you right now, I know that you have been given immunity with regard to your testimony, and there had been at some point you didn't want to testify, at some point you did want to testify. The first question I have for you...
I never wanted to testify.
Okay, the first, well, right, want to is maybe the wrong term, but my question for you right now is, do you have an attorney at all?
I don't know.
You don't know whether you have an attorney? I would think that would be a no then, if you don't know whether...
I was talking to Melanie, but...
Melnick?
Yes.
Okay, didn't he ask to be relieved as your attorney, and did you sign something saying that's okay, you can get out of this?
I don't.
You don't remember? Okay. Does anybody know whether that actually occurred?
I don't believe it occurred. I believe that Ms. Bumpus,
I know she was stand-in.
She was stand-in, and I believe something was said on the record to the effect that Ms. Bumpus was relieved. But
yeah, I know she was.
There was nothing about Mr. Melnick to my knowledge.
Okay, maybe we...
There was. Ms. Bumpus actually said yesterday, I believe, during her testimony that Mr. Melnick had directed her to tell Mr. Copeland that he could either exercise his,
well, choose not to testify.
Right. Or if he chose to testify, according to Ms. Bumpus.
Yeah, I remember she said, there's this paper I'm supposed to get him to sign. I'm trying to figure out whether it got signed.
So I never got Mr. Melnick off my case.
Okay, so he's still your attorney then?
I guess.
Okay, all right. Well, then that's the answer we've got for that. All right, so I'm going to try to get a hold of Mr. Melnick and see if he can be here with us this afternoon, because some of what I suspect you recall when you were brought into Judge Glanville's chambers with Ms. Bumpus and a couple of the people from the state, and there was a discussion that Ms. Bumpus and Ms. Hilton and Judge Glanville had with you. You asked some questions. They gave you some information. Some of that information was not actually factually correct. And I want to make sure that you have the opportunity understanding what it is that the immunity order means, understanding what the potential consequences are if you do testify or if you don't. We're basically going to kind of start over and
So
do
if I
that
don't
over.
testify, So if I don't testify, how long you gonna hold me in jail?
So, I mean, that's still an issue that you can be held in jail through the end of this trial, but I'd rather have Mr. Melnick here to advise you about the potential drawbacks and benefits of what, if there are any,
This
of any
trial
of
right
your...
here? To the end of this trial?
Yes.
Not the other people.
Not as far as I believe, but the state, what, did you want to do some further research on that?
Yes, just to advise the court of...
Okay, so I just wanted to know, first off, do you have an attorney? Because if you do have an attorney, then your attorney may have some information, advice, and research for me about that. So I want to make sure that I tell you the correct thing about that, okay? So we're going to take a lunch break in a little while, and why don't we plan to have you back here on standby at least. I don't know who was in communication, but we need to reach out to Mr. Melnick, see what his availability is. So just be on standby in case I need you here like at 2 or 3 this afternoon.
2 or 3?
Yeah, because we're about to take a lunch break before too much longer. So you're okay to leave for the next couple of hours, but stay where whomever reached out from the state can reach you to let you know whether you need to be back here this afternoon or potentially tomorrow instead, okay?
All right.
All right, thank you. So, I don't know who. Okay, my litigation manager is going to reach out to Mr. Melnick, see if he can get a hold of, see if she can get a hold of Mr. Melnick and find out what his availability is. And depending upon his availability, we'll just see when it is that we have Mr. Copeland back. Because I want him to have the benefit of counsel. And then I also want y'all over the lunch break to work on whatever you think ought to be the correct advice to him. And if you, the state, believe that it is possible to hold him past the trial for which he is under subpoena, then you show me what authority
Yes, Your Honor.
lets you believe that. Okay?
Your
All
Honor,
right, yeah.
one thing, I think that the transcript reflects this from June 10th, and as well as Ms. Bumpus's testimony yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
She was emphatic that Mr. Melnick said, if you testify, I'm not representing you. So, and with the fact that Mr. Copeland said,
No, what he said was, if you plead the fifth, I'm not representing you. So I don't know, what that means. I'm just going to reach out to Mr. Melnick, and at least Mr. Copeland thinks Mr. Melnick is still representing him. And if Mr. Copeland never signed whatever that was relieving him, I don't know exactly what their arrangement is, but let's find out from Mr. Melnick.
yes, Your Honor.
All right. Okay, so let's get a few more minutes in of this before we break, because it's not even noon yet, and we were making some progress, which is good. All right, so we were on number 12.
Number 12 being page 47, lines, if I'm reading correctly, line 14 through page 50, line 8.
Yes.
Okay. So, Your Honor, the objection to this portion of it, just to give you a little bit of background. So, this fight happened around January the 6th, and it did begin with Mr. Copeland, according to the reports from our investigators, but it involved more than one member of YSL, more than one alleged member of YSL. Mr. Bloody J, who is a member of If Gang, was on the other side of the fight from YSL, and other people who are in the courtroom now participated in that with them. So Mr. Zachary's rendition of what happened, that we would argue it's Mr. Zachary's knowledge of and participation in this gang is what allows him to be able to tell this to Detective Dennis. Mr. Shart's assertion, it does not appear that he was there, I don't think is a ground to exclude it. Assuming that the court is satisfied with the foundation that the state lays for Mr. Zachary's
Being
ability
a
to
co-conspirator.
yes, we would argue that it's admissible. It's
So do you know whether he was there or not?
so
So let me ask Mr. Shart, is the basis for you saying you don't think he was there that no on line 23 when Is that the basis of it?
What page, line 23?
47, line 23? Because I don't think that no is actually an answer
Oh,
to.
no,
Okay.
it's not based on that.
Okay. You have no
actually
reason
do
to
not
believe.
know.
Okay.
I actually do not know
Okay.
he was there, and I haven't heard anyone talk about him being there.
Okay. Do we
And
know whether
and
he
this
was
is-
there?
Page 48, line 5. Start at line.
Oh, so we went back there. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
If he was in fact there, then
And
I
then
withdraw.
somewhere else he says, would he? Okay. All right. Well, then you'll withdraw that objection?
If he was there, then yes.
Okay. So that number 12 is withdrawn. All right, number 13.
My understanding is this is page 54, line 18 through page 55, line 11.
Yeah, let's take that up first.
So the state has no objection to page 54, lines 18 through 22, where investigator Dennis says, who they say killed him, meaning Donovan Thomas. Zachary repeats the question. Ultimately, Zachary says, shoot, they say Woody and them, I don't know for a fact. So I would agree and argue that he don't know.
Okay.
So it's
He's
not.
telling them.
Okay. So 54, line 18 through 22, you concede should be redacted.
So, and let me also give further clarification. Mr. Zachary, later, he tells earlier in 2015, he relates to law enforcement about statements made to him by 2 people in the courtroom now. And 2 people admitting having killed Donovan Thomas.
Okay.
This statement right here is after 2 years later. So, when he says, they say Woody and them, I don't know for a fact.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody argued that that's an inconsistent statement that should come in, I'm not objecting to it coming out because what I feel is a lie is irrelevant, but I'm not objecting to it coming out.
Okay.
So, Your Honor, we got a lot of moving parts here, because eventually, I agree with Ms. Love. Eventually, in this statement, Mr. Zachary claims that Mr. Kendrick told him that they killed Nutt, and Mr. Stillwell told him that they killed Mr. Thomas.
Okay.
So I anticipate, because I was doing this for Mr. Stillwell, but I anticipate other counsel in this courtroom arguing that are affected by this, arguing that this is spilling the beans and it's not a statement by a co-conspirator and therefore not admissible.
Which part are we talking about?
Okay.
I think.
Okay. So, right. Okay.
Okay.
So, if I guess I'll rewind. I will say that if there is testimony, either through direct testimony or cross-examine or impeachment,
Mm-hmm.
that my client said something to Mr. Zachary, or that Mr. Kendrick said something to Mr. Zachary, then I would want to get that in.
18 through 22.
Right, because it would be inconsistent with the claims he says later on. Here he's saying, well, they're saying Woody and other people,
All right,
but
I
then
don't know.
later on he says, my client directly said this.
All right,
So if that comes in, I'd want to use that for impeachment.
I'd have to know who the they is here. right? Before that could be, if the they is Mr. Kendrick or Mr. Stillwell, yes. But if the they is some random amorphous gossip rag,
Well,
no.
it would be relevant because if he's telling the truth, okay, assuming he's telling the truth.
Oh, I see I see what you mean. Yeah. If he's already said, or he will later say.
He's going to say that he already said in a different statement, and later in this statement, he's going to say that my client told him at night. And if he's holding that information, then him answering, they saying Woody and them, I don't know.
All right, I still need to find out who the they is then, because the question posed by the investigator is who they say killed him.
I think
right? So
who the streets are saying.
Okay, well then for Mr. Zachary to say, here's what the street is saying is not inconsistent with, but I actually know because the perpetrator told me it's the perpetrator. So that would not be this 18 through 22 would not be inconsistent to a statement by Zachary that Mr. Kendrick and or Mr. Stillwell told me personally that they're the ones that did it. You see what I mean?
I see what you mean. I would argue that would be the time a reasonable person would say who they say did it. Well, if my client had said he did it, say, well, I don't even need to tell you who they say.
All right, well, I would reject that argument. So that's out. All right, so next